Sheep farming is a numbers game. If your ewe only has one lamb, the chances are you'll make a loss. If she has 3 lambs, you'll probably still make a loss. It just won't be as big. This is the sheep farmer's year on the land. The countryside is changing from its familiar green to brown. There may be very few trees and falling leaves in Shannafaraghaun, County Galway, but the view across the lake leaves little doubt that autumn has arrived. On the hillside, Roy the sheepdog is doing what he does best, gathering sheep.
It's the right way, right way. Wait.
His owner, Joe Joyce, is a hill sheep farmer.
My father and my father's father was here farming, going back, and I'd say my great-grandfather probably farmed in the area. I'd be running right to 156 acres of common, I'd say, on this hill behind us here. There's 1,500 acres on the whole hill, so there's 5 shareholders on it, and that'll be my share on it.
Joe works with his neighbours to gather their sheep from the hill.
We gather them 5 times a year approximately, like off the hill. And the days you're gathering, we do it as a group, like, you know, but you'll have 2 or 3 days all in all getting them in.
Joe's sheep are brought down in autumn for dipping and dosing.
One of the biggest problems we have here with the sheep on these hills is the fluke, and they'll have to be dosed 3 or 4 times a year. It's always mid-October we'll be trying to get it done.
Joe's hardy black-faced sheep survive on the mountain through the toughest weather, but they need to be dosed for fluke and dipped to prevent parasites.
For years, people were just lifting them up in a little concrete box, which was a strange one when you think of it, really, like that they didn't think of just digging a hole. You fill up the tank and just put in some winter dip, which is chemical used to give them protection from the weather, and as well it treats against all sorts of ticks and lice and all that kind of thing in the skin. You'll definitely know the one that isn't dipped when you bring them in again. Let's say some that are missed, the wool is a lot paler, a lot deader on them, so it gives them protection from the weather as well as from the mites and stuff.
Irish lamb raised on hills like these has an international reputation for quality, but latest figures would suggest that traditional sheep farming is in crisis. Ireland's 31,000 sheep farmers earn an average family farm income of under €10,000 a year. Sheep farming is not a job you do for the money.
But it's a labour of love for me, because I love the sheep. I've always loved them and the dogs, and if I could make a full-time living from it and support my family from it, I'd be only delighted, but sad fact is it doesn't work that way.
The Irish flock has almost halved from a high of 4.8 million sheep to just over 2.6 million today. There are several different breeds, but whatever their type, commercial lambs don't reach great prices.
At the moment they're running about €90. Depends on the time of year and depends on demand and supply. Roughly between 75 and €100 this last couple of years.
In order to make a profit, Donegal farmer Ronnie Edwards runs a pedigree Texel flock alongside his commercial flock.
The fellow next to me cost $4,600 at a ram lamb, 6 months old. He was bought for the pedigree flock to produce ram lambs for sale onto commercial farmers. The Texel is a British sheep that originated in the island of Texel, just off Holland, and they've been in Ireland about 30 years. They go to crossbred ewes to produce mostly well-built lambs for the butcher trade.
On their own, these crossbred ewes would not produce enough meat, but when paired with a pedigree ram, they create a better lamb.
The Texel ewe wouldn't be a great lammer, wouldn't have many lambs, would be hard to lamb, wouldn't be particularly good mothers. So we use them only for producing purebred ram lambs or ewe lambs to sell on.
In Wicklow, ex-Teagasc sheep advisor Andrew Kinsella is trying to create the perfect sheep farming system.
My late father, purchased this in 1974 for 21,000 punts at the time. And then it was cattle and sheep, but for the last 30 years it's been nearly sheep the whole time. I produced near enough 2 lambs a year. I'm interested in breeding, and I just want to see, to me, you have to improve what the last generation done. You know, if the last generation have been at 1.3 or 1.4 lambs, I think this generation has to improve that. And farming is not about staying at the same static the whole time. You have to try to push the boundaries that little bit more.
Andrew keeps 6 carefully chosen rams to breed with his ewes.
These are 2 Belfair ram lambs. They were bought this year. Them 3 rams there are used to produce replacements.
Replacements are ewes who will join Andrew's flock to produce more lambs next year. The lambs to eat will be produced from his other 3 rams.
I use the Suffolk on the Belfairs in order to produce blackish ewes to cross back the Belfair on them. I do not want to be crossing Belfair on Belfair on Belfair. The Suffolks are still the fastest growth rate. These 2 lads here are Charolais. They're used as terminal sires, and they are easy lambing, and they're very good figures with them. During the mating period, the rams will eat very little. So for the last 2 weeks, or 2 to 3 weeks, I give them bit of meals and to have them in good condition, because they'll lose at the end of mating, they'll have lost a lot of weight.
Having your ram in the right condition for the autumn breeding season is crucial.
It's an indication, a good indication when a ram is fertile. See, the pink reddish pigment is in the skin. And the other thing to watch out for is that his testicles are even when you're purchasing them and all that, and a free movement, that there's no swelling or anything like that in them. A ram that will run a high temperature, if he gets a cold and runs a high temperature, his testicles will get soft and reduce. So he won't be fertile and you get no lambs out of him. So that's the thing when you're buying a ram, to watch out for that.
A good ram will give the farmer a better chance of getting high lamb numbers.
The numbers are very important when you go to sell. If I can sell 15 lambs against 10, I'm going to end up with a greater margin, and so that's why to have high lamb percentages is important when it comes to the time of selling them.
Tom Stanton farms in Tourmakeedy, County Mayo.
I was just born over the road. That's where the family home is. And I'm farming here, I suppose, for the last 30-odd years. I inherited the farm from my father. When we get up in the morning, you look out in Loch Mask. There's people that give their right arm for that scenario.
Living in one of the most picturesque parts of the country might be some compensation, but the economics of sheep farming aren't for the faint-hearted.
People might think a lamb is born in April and sold in June, July. The period is very short. But they forget that the sheep has to be maintained on the farm throughout the whole. It's a 12-month cycle, really. So most farmers would be lucky to have a margin, maybe a profit margin, maybe 10 to 20 euro per lamb after all that work throughout the year. This is to identify the sheep that are being tipped, so we'll have an indication of when they're lambing. It does nothing except to put a mark on the ewe.
The gestation period for a ewe is 147 days. The farmer can note the date the ewe is tupped by looking at the raddle marks left by the ram on the ewe's back. 21 weeks after that date, the lambs will be born.
Yeah, this one is after being tipped. You can see the raddle here. From that, there's about 21 weeks gestation on the ewe. So she'll be lambing, today is the 13th. She'll be lambing about the 8th and 9th of March. So after scanning, we'll select the ewes that's lambing early and feed them accordingly.
We let out the ram around the 19th, 20th of November, and we don't let them out until that time, because if the higher ewes in the mountain will be left lambing on the mountain. So you don't want these lambs coming too early.
Henry Clifton Brown's breeding season is focused on milk yield.
We have 5 different bloodlines. Because you're trying to keep different bloodlines, you obviously don't want fathers to meet their daughters and that sort of stuff. So you breed the top maybe 60% of your sheep. That's a 60% best yielders in the milking parlour. 2 milking sheep again.
Milking sheep is a highly specialised type of farming.
We're not sheep farmers like everybody else. We are actually doing dairy sheep here. At the moment, 250 sheep running through the parlour, milking twice a day. Well, obviously it's 7 days a week, which is the downside of milking, and it takes us 3 hours each time, so 6 hours a day to milk the sheep, which is it's a lot of the day. Every Sunday afternoon, when everyone else is thinking of matches or visiting relatives or something like that, I'm milking, And people say, "You're coming to do something on a Sunday afternoon?" No, I'm milking. So yeah, it's quite a sacrifice at that, but then that's the way it goes. I'm lucky that I have a lot of help. There's an awful lot of dairy farmers that have the same routine and have no help.
Henry milks during the spring and summer, and the milk from his 300 ewes goes to make Crozier blue cheese.
We dry the sheep off in the middle of September, and then from September through to the middle of January, there's no milking going on, which is a lovely break for us.
The autumn is a quiet time for Henry.
Yeah, it is. It's a bit of a holiday. Yeah, it's still busy, but yeah, no, it's nice not to have this milking cloud hanging over you on Sunday afternoon, that you can go away and not be looking at your watch or thinking when it's time to come back or whatever.
As autumn draws to a close, like Henry, the exhausted rams will enjoy a well-earned rest. The ewes are pregnant and the sheep farmers get ready for the winter. Despite it being -6 degrees, in Shannafaraghan, County Galway, Joe Joyce and his sheepdogs are out on the hills. Black-faced sheep are hardy creatures and are well able to survive on their own in the harshest of winters, but like all good shepherds, Joe wouldn't rest easy without checking on his flock.
But it's better to leave sheep alone on bad weather. They'll find their own shelter and everything. The less interference you have with them, we find that it's the better they do, really. So we just try and go check on them as minimal now this time of year. Just make sure they're okay, but at the same time try and leave them alone as often as possible.
The snow on the hilltops makes it easier for Joe to check his ewes and gives his dogs a rare winter opportunity to practice their skills.
So I'm taking advantage of the conditions today where there's snow high on the hill, so I'll be hoping most of them are down. And there's no harm to check them anyway. It's only a light skim of snow, but the sheep will still come down to the lower parts. So it'll make it a lot easier, hopefully. I'll get most of them probably a lot quicker than I would normally.
Joe's sheepdogs are almost more important than his sheep. A lamb sells for €90, but Joe can sell a sheepdog pup for a lot more.
When you think of a litter of pups registered, I'd be expecting, well, what I got for the last ones was €200 each registered up. So when you think of it, 1 litter of pups here is making more than you would on 40 hill weather lambs.
And a trained dog could be worth over €2,000.
So it's a big part of the trial. At the end, you have to pen them, and there's a good majority of the marks for it. So it's a thing a lot of dogs wouldn't be too practiced at, so it's just a matter of getting them used to penning them. But Roy is fairly handy at it, so they should go in fairly easy.
Over the hills from Joe in Westport, County Mayo, Tom Stanton and a group of fellow sheep farmers have a plan to make their farms more profitable.
This evening we're launching our new company, Lamb Direct. So the boys, as you can see, are preparing the lamb that's going to be cooked later on this evening down at the Milton Hotel.
Tonight is the launch of Lamb Direct. With the help of a local butcher, Tom and his team plan to sell their lambs directly to the customer, boxed and pre-packed.
It's a new experience for us. We're farmers, weren't tuned into this type of business, but we're quick learners, and hopefully in a few weeks it'll be running nice and smooth for us.
Each of the founder members has invested heavily in the project, and tonight's launch is the culmination of 2 years' work. Seamus Hughes is one of the group's members. He farms near Tom in Tourmacady.
I have 12 different plots. Most of that is mountain land. And they're all different sizes. Could be 3 acres, could be 2 acres, it could be 12 acres.
Seamus's fragmented farm is typical of the west of Ireland and makes earning a living difficult. He therefore has a full-time job.
I'll be working around 3, half 3. I come home and it's just like the routine, what I did in the morning, I do again in the evening. And hope and pray that's nothing gone wrong. Without the job, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing. I wouldn't be able to make enough money on the farm to have the things I have.
For Seamus, Lamb Direct makes perfect sense.
There's 8 of us in it. We all know each other for years, through one organisation or another, through mules, grey faces, black faced sheep, all that, you know, and just you'd meet each other at sales, and Jesus Christ, faxes are all paying X amount now, and you know, so we all kind of came up basically with the one idea: why don't we kill our own, sell our own, cut out the middleman?
By doing their own butchering and selling, the boys hope to keep more of the profits. Feeding sheep is a costly business.
1/3 of sheep farmers are making an actual loss on their enterprise. There's another third just breaking even, and it's just the top third that is making a margin on them.
With tonight's launch, Tom and Seamus are hoping to break into that top third. But to farm, process and sell their own lamb will be a lot harder than just organising a party.
On a long term, it's better for me to get my money back than give it to the factory that I'll never see back. You know, it's a long process, and at the end of the line, hopefully we'll be able to make a good profit. You know, as one year leads to another, and we're producing more lambs or selling more lambs.
When do you see that happening?
Oh, not for a good while yet now.
At this stage, I'll stay at it as long as I can, and that once I have the health to continue doing what I'm doing, I'll be no millionaire, but once we survive now, and hopefully we'll survive for the next 20 or 30 years.
In Cashel, a gleam of winter light distracts from the cold as Henry scans his sheep.
It's January. It's frosty. We're running a little bit of an earlier cycle because most sheep farmers are lamb in March. That's a more normal time. So we're kind of 6 weeks ahead all the way across the board on that one.
The majority of sheep are starting to lamb now, so we're lambing in 2 blocks, the January block and what we scan today, the March block.
At this time of year, the pregnant ewes are producing no milk. But after lambing, all that will change.
We're not into the busy season yet, but in 2 weeks we will be into the very busy season. The milking will start in maybe 2-3 weeks, something like that. We always have to just gauge that. Like if we get a whole lot of frosty weather, I'm not going to be jumping up and down to start the milking parlour. I'll wait till it's finished, because frozen pipes and milking parlour isn't much fun. But yeah, we're just at the quiet before the storm. It's just about to take off now.
Henry scans his ewes so that he can cull those that aren't pregnant.
I believe there's a good price in the factory at the moment for killing, so I would say that the majority of the barren sheep, that is, will go to the factory.
And just like any dairy farmer, Henry's only interested in his ewes having daughters because they provide the milk.
Most sheep farmers would much rather have a double. In the game we're at, though, the number of lambs isn't really important. The sex of lambs would be very important, but we can't choose that one. So it would be lovely to have one new lamb in every single sheep and no ram lambs, but that'll be trying to have all your chickens.
As the snow falls on the hills in Wicklow, Andrew Kinsella's sheep are indoors waiting to be fed. Using his experience as a retired Teagasc sheep advisor, Andrew runs a high-input, high-output system to try and make more money. The sheep are outside in the summer, but in the winter are kept indoors.
If I have 100 sheep here, I could leave them out over the winter time. But I went on to the high-cost, high-output route. So high output means a lot of sheep. A lot of sheep is that's the management it does is that you have to take them off the ground in the winter time in order to have grass in the springtime for lambing. So that means if you're going to take them off, do you rent ground? And Wicklow would be a lot of sheep in Wicklow. To renting the ground over the winter period is, I don't believe it's feasible. And especially when I was working at the same time, I couldn't be running, trying to any distance away to look at sheep on rented, herd sheep on rented ground. So I decided to go the shed roof.
By feeding indoors, Andrew is able to increase the stocking rate on his farm. A typical hill farm might support 1 sheep per acre, but Andrew's stocking rate is 5 times that. By using different inputs and feed as well as grass, he hopes to increase his profitability by having his ewes in peak condition for lambing time.
At the end of the day, it's just having a plan and trying to meet every step as you go along the way and make changes as you go along.
It is still January, and whilst the other sheep farmers are waiting for spring, Henry has hit his busy period.
We're going in to see some of the freshly born lambs here in the sheep shed. We just started lambing there about 2 days ago. It's only the very early stages now.
As a dairy farmer, Henry needs to separate his lambs and ewes. The ewes go to be milked, and the lambs have to learn to feed themselves at the milk bar.
These are the lambs we took away from the ewes earlier on this morning. We're trying to encourage the lambs to suck a milk bar. They've been starving now since 7 o'clock, or fasting, I suppose. And we now have to get down here and hopefully succeed in training these little fellas to suck the rubber teats.
By lambing and weaning early, Henry can start milking his ewes straight away. For the other sheep farmers, lambing is still to come. The sight of newborn lambs frolicking in the early evening sunlight is a sure sign that spring has arrived. It is lambing time. For the sheep farmer, this is the busiest time of the year. Andrew Kinsella does all his lambing indoors.
We're in the 4th or 5th day now, this stage. You know, it's not that many so far. There's only about 20 odd have lambed.
The ewes are grouped depending on how many lambs they're expecting.
This pen here is a pen of twins. There's roughly 110 twins in total. Pen of triplets, 3s and 4s, but mostly there's only a few 4s, mostly 3s. The top half pen is twins again, and the one across is 3s again.
Andrew's year has been building up to this fortnight, and once the action starts, he becomes totally absorbed in the lambing process, often spending 20 hours a day in the shed. Lambing can be a relentless and unforgiving time, but Andrew is in his element.
Stop, lady. She's plenty of room, and I'm going to take that lamb with the one leg and head out.
With a quick swing and a little pat, this fellow will soon be doing well. But not all lambs have such a good start.
That little lad was born this morning, and he has probably a 50-50 chance of survival. He was won a triplet,
if I leave him with the ewe, he wouldn't have a chance of survival, so he'll be just artificially reared there. Now, it's always our intention here that there should be no pet lambs after lambing. You'll always get a few pet lambs and go to the field and things like that, but between up to the end of lambing, that lambs will be cross-transferred. You know, I don't want to see any pet lambs at the end of lambing. I'm taking a lamb, this is 3, and I'm going to put one of those onto a ewe that's having a single lamb. It's cross-fostering because a ewe can rear 2 lambs better than 3 lambs. And with one lamb will have excess milk. We dunk it into warm salty water, wash them. Okay. We take our plastic bag and we come. There's a ewe here. These are scanned for singles. This ewe is going to have a single lamb. And the lamb is just out.
Timing is crucial.
Okay. In order to get the ewe to take up, each ewe can smell the lamb from the birth fluids and that. And in order to get the ewe to take up with the lamb, we need to be able to rub plenty of birth fluid into the lamb. And to be able to keep it, plastic bags are a great thing. That it will retain all the birth fluids and that you'll have plenty of it to rub onto the lamb. So we know head and 2 legs are out, normal presentation. Now, 1 leg. Single lambs take a little bit longer to come because they're that little shade bigger. 2 legs. Good lady. See all the fluids?
At this stage, the ewe doesn't know she's only had 1 lamb.
No. And so she'll end up with 2. Some people often just put in the hand to stimulate another birth, you know. There's still any amount of fluids around there. And the tail and the back of the neck, that's where they do most of the licking. Now, if I had no little twine on that lad, he'd be up and running away and gone. And normally that system generally never fails, bar a lamb will reject the ewe. Some lambs, if they're a week or so old, may reject the ewe, particularly if they're very full, and they just go and lie in the corner. Now, there you are, lady. Two lambs for you. And we leave her there to get on with licking them. And
This fostering is successful. Once the lambs are born, the realities of contemporary farming soon step in.
before the lambs go to the field, they're tagged just for identification purposes. The lambs are tailed and castrated with rubber rings. Normally you do it in mid-season in order to keep the lambs cleaner, and also that there would be lambs in the back end of the year to prevent indiscriminate breeding, and that it's a management thing.
In the mountains, the lambs may come a bit later, but their arrival is just as welcome.
This one was born this morning, and here you have the real little Connemara black-faced lamb. As you can see, the little horns on these lambs with the ewes coming in out the hill. There's only small little horns on them, so they don't give any difficulty lambing. And as you can see, he's still a nice little weight of a lamb, so when the sheep gets a week or two here, you'll have a nice little lamb to go. to go to the mountain again.
Joe snips his lambs rather than using a band, but traditionally the farmer would do this with his teeth.
Just castrated the lamb. We've turned them from rams into wethers, because if you leave them as whole ram lambs, when they're being sold, say in October, November is when the rams are in season, and the meat will be flavoured. You wouldn't want to eat meat of actually uncastrated lambs, like, because if you castrate them, the meat stays, it doesn't get tainted. If the rams, if they want later to be butchered, say November, December, that's as I said, the rams are in season that time, and the meat will be tainted. So.
In Tourmakeady, lambing has been very relaxed.
Our Scotch sheep are started the lamb on the farm. So I think today so far we just have 4 lambs, and yesterday I think we had 14 or 15. So we'll be getting busier as over the next week or two now.
For any sheep farmer, feeding the orphan lambs is a time-consuming chore. But for Tom's young assistant, it will create a memory of childhood to be cherished forever.
He's praying. He's getting big. He's kneeling down.
A landmark of the farming year is over. As spring draws to a close, Joe takes advantage of the fine weather to give his dogs a run on the beach.
This is probably the best part of the day the dogs enjoy. At once a day, always in the morning if I can, before I feed them even. I'd get them back here for a run up and down on the beach here, and I'm very lucky to have this within a couple of 100 yards of the house, and they get exercise, especially if I'm not taking them out that much for the day. At least they've got their exercise. There's a lake, they can go in the water, they can run up and down. Been 10 or 15 minutes here, it's the best exercise that I will get. And the dogs love it, like, so. And it's good training for a dog, because you teach them how to stay behind you as a pack, as a group, because I usually work 2 or 3 dogs together, so it's good manners to train a young dog to stay behind you as you're walking along.
Summer is just around the corner. The sun may not be quite splitting the rocks, but in Shannafaraghaun, this counts as summer. Joe Joyce is taking advantage of the good weather to gather his ewes for shearing.
When I'm out on the lake, I can see a lot more of the hill and see where the sheep are. Send Roy up the side of the hill here, he'll gather half the hill, he'll gather 150, 200 sheep in, you can do it in 40, 45 minutes nearly. But it would take 3 or 4 hours before, because you have to walk over the hill and back. It saves a lot of legs and a lot of walking, and I says it's very handy. And in springtime, if there's a weak one or something, you can pick her up, put her in the boat, and bring her back along the lake here. You're not trying to be carrying them along on your shoulders or nursing them along slowly on the thing, so.
As Joe brings his sheep along the lake, there's time to reflect on the realities of sheep farming.
At the end of the day, you have to try and make a living. You know, it's not going to pay the bills. And without grants, it's very minimal, the income. Even as you go up in the numbers of sheep even, because unless you had a huge run of hill with a huge number of sheep, you're not going to make a living out of them. I don't think there is a sheep farmer in the country. If there is, there's very few of them that would make an actual full-time living out of the sheep. But definitely for us, where you're talking about 100 sheep, 150, 200 sheep, on that scale, you're not going to make a living out of them. It's without grants. The grants then just bring it up, and even at that, you're not making a living. It's just supplementing whatever other income you can bring into the house.
Sheep used to be reared for their wool as well as their meat, but the fashion for man-made fibres and wooden floors has seen the demand for jumpers and carpets collapse, and so has the price of wool.
So you're talking less than 50 cents for a fleece of wool, and if you have to pay contractors in to shear your sheep, They're going to charge you €1.50 to €2, so you're shearing at a loss, really. Too bad. Maybe a bit rough for the experts, but top of the hill, nobody going to be judging her. So there now you have a fairly decent fleece, but you still only be coming into probably euros worth, maybe €1.50.
For every sheep farmer, it's the same. What used to be a source of profit is now a cost.
I think it's 40 cents a kilo now, it's nothing. And on average, these sheep will yield maybe 2 kilos. The cost of shearing them is €2. So let's say you get 80 cents for the wool and you lose €1.20. It's not a money-making enterprise.
It's only the ewes that are sheared, as the lambs will soon be going to slaughter. Ronnie Edwards' lambs were born just a few months ago and will soon be on sale in his farm shop.
It has to be killed to be ate, and we've been at it all our lives, and it's just part of our makeup, just that we rear something and have it killed and move on, and it's all done as humanely as possible, and to all have a right good life, and that's just part of the farmer's life, just to rear and kill.
Ronnie's lambs are processed at the local abattoir. The following scenes are rarely, if ever, seen on television. But for all farmers, the slaughter is as natural a part of the farming process as feeding or lambing.
An animal come into the lairage outside, the vet inspects them. If he passes them, they're suitable for killing, we bring them in and kill them. Some people find it easier to buy in the stuff more so than kill their own. Just think a piece of meat's just there for you on the plate, like, but it's not. A lot of work before it gets to the plate.
In Wicklow, Andrew Kinsella knows just how much work goes into his lambs, and also how little he gets paid for them.
My biggest cost is variable costs. Are meals and fertiliser. Then there's veterinary medicine. And then you have your fixed costs, which is the maintenance around the yard, insurance and all these other bits and pieces.
This year's poor winter increased feed costs early on, but the good summer hopefully balanced things out. As Andrew weighs his lambs ready for the factory, he has little idea where his sheep will end up.
Well, I'd like to know what housewife would buy my lamb. I'd love to know where the lambs go to, and maybe, I don't have any problems if somebody wants to come here to see how I treat the lambs, none whatsoever. And it would be nice to know that somebody got my meat, they appreciated it and gave a ring up, and I could show them people then, come down, have a look what we do, and even tell me if there's certain areas that you don't like or that we could improve. You know, it'd be nice to appreciate that too.
The lambs that Andrew brought into the world and tended every day of their lives are transported early in the morning to the factory. Andrew's association with them ends unceremoniously as they're checked in at the factory door. Once they enter the factory, Andrew's lambs are a commodity product and could end up in the local butchers, in one of the major supermarkets, or depending on the factory's order book, could be exported to the UK or even to France. Andrew may not know where his lambs go, but he does know the price the factory gives him.
We get back the check, which is most important, and attached to that is a kill sheet where the performance of each individual lamb, there's a number, like we tagged the lambs before going to the factory. And we had an individual price for each lamb.
For each lamb, Andrew received an average of €91.55, which, after costs, left him with just €18.60. His income from sheep for a year's work was about €8,000.
Unless things change, I think the whole sheep thing I'd be very concerned about. I think supermarkets, chains, PLC shareholders have to take a lot of responsibility for what's happened. And it will be left very similar to the banks. With the bank situation, the regulations were so lax and all that, and we say what happened. And it's only when there's a catastrophe, when people start complaining, lack of food and all that something will be done.
By selling their lamb themselves, Lamb Direct gives Tom and Seamus an extra €10 per lamb sold.
In comparison to the guy that's making a loss on it, at least I'm going in the right direction, and you're always hoping that the marketplace will improve. Presently this year, the marketplace has been good for lamb, and hopefully that will double and triple that margin this year. We always live in expectation that next year is going to be a better year.
At the moment, it's just a few guys making profit on what they're in, and we'll see down the road.
In Cashel, the future of dairy sheep farming is no more financially secure.
A time when I think of stopping milking sheep? Frequently. Very frequently. Yeah, I'd still do the odd cheese show, and if someone stands there, takes a bit of cheese, puts it in their mouth and says, that's the most delicious cheese, it does give you a good feeling anyway, yeah.
In Shanna Farrakhan, Joe Joyce has reached the conclusion that he'll never make a living just selling sheep.
Well, as people would say, why hold on to the sheep when they're not making any money? But it's our way of life, and whatever little bit we're getting out of them, it's a little bit as if it's a healthy way of life and stuff. It gives you an interest. It's what quality of life we can give our young ones is the biggest worry. That's why I'd like to think that I might be able to make something of what I'm starting now with the dogs, or something that I'd be able to generate enough income to kind of make it a little bit more comfortable. But it's going to be a lot tougher in the next while.
Is sheep farming in Ireland destined to become just a tourist attraction? The economics say yes, but then the sheep farmer, like his sheep, is a hardy creature.
It's a great life. Yeah. It is a good life. Okay, the money won't make you up, but when you come to my age, it doesn't take a lot of money to keep us going.
We've always said it if we could get enough money out of the scenery and the way of life we have, when you couldn't ask for better, as a way of life, it's super,
Our year with the sheep farmers is over, and so too is the summer.